everybody. Welcome to our first Smart Talk of the fall. Smart Talks connect research and art practice at the University of Iowa to the Stanley Museum of Art. Today, we are thrilled to have Donté K discuss some of his recent work. Donté's graduated summa cum laude from Kennesaw State University at Kennesaw, Georgia, with a BFA in ceramics and printmaking and an art history minor. He recently received his MA and MFA with honors from the University of Iowa, where he held the University of Iowa Arts Fellowship.
Represent.
He was an Artaxis Fellow at a Ceramics Monthly magazine Emerging Artist, and won the Society 1858 Prize for Contemporary Southern Art from Gibbes Museum of Art in Charleston, South Carolina. Today, Donté will discuss his research on the pineapple as a symbol that represents welcoming and hospitality, and how this investigation relates to negotiating public spaces and places as a Black man and person of color. He uses printmaking, installation, and performance to elevate the importance of his ceramic sculptures as a historical and creative base material to inform memories of the past. Donté's artwork suggests the past, discusses the present, and explores possible futures interconnected to the African diaspora, while also examining deeper social issues that broaden the conversation between all humanity. We are so lucky to have Donté here today. You may notice that we have closed captioning. If you can't see that, you can hit your closed captioning button or show subtitles. We also have the chat box open, so please feel free to make comments in that box. And we have our Q&A box. So if you have any questions for Donté, please put them in there and we'll address them at the end. Thank you so much, Donté, for being with us today. And I'll turn this over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Kimberly. And it's really exciting to be back in Iowa virtually. So go Hawks. I love you guys that are all here participating, listening. It's time to enjoy the show. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. I called this talk, Welcome to Afro City, because this was actually would have been the title of my thesis show that, as we all know, because of COVID, wasn't able to happen. So now it's happening today. So from there, I'm going to take you Black to the future. I say this because my artwork always deals with science fiction and comic books and my love of history and hip hop. When I was growing up, I used, which I still am, as a big fan of comic books and particularly Black Panther. And I'm old school. I was down with Black Panther way before it was cool, way before anyone even knew what Black Panther was. When I was growing up, I used to get laughed at because Black Panther was like considered the fake Batman. And I was always like, nah, man, Batman's weak compared to Black Panther. And so if you can see on the screen, these are my actual comics. And if you know, as a comic book nerd, you never, ever take them out the comic. Like, so I would just read them one time and then like make notes so I wouldn't have to read it again and then put it back into the sleeve, because that's how much I love Black Panther and loved the stories and a place for positivity to see a Black person. More, a lot of science fiction, as well as reading Octavia Butler, Metropolis. Watching that was like a powerful thing for me to watch as a kid. But and also Fahrenheit 451 was one of the books that I always go back to as well. That I feel like that's how we're living now. Even right now, we're doing a virtual conversation on a screen. Just like in Fahrenheit 451, they had big wall screens where they were told what the news of the day was. So I kind of feel like we're living in the future now. Growing up, one of my favorite TV shows was Star Trek and Star Trek Next Generation. And I always related to the characters in there because it was an opportunity to see strong Black characters doing amazing things in the future. Because a lot of times you never saw people of color in the future in regular pop culture. I mean, I even saw the Klingon character Worf as a Black man. From there, I also love hip hop. Just a little background for myself. I started college late life. Right after high school, I went straight into making art. You know, so I really all my life I've been making art for a living, and I would make posters and different graphics for the different rap artists that would come into Atlanta at the time. I primarily worked with Lil Wayne, Criss Cross, showing my age, and So So Def, as well as Ludacris, and so I would do a lot of work with them. And then a good friend of mine was good friends with the Dungeon Family and Outkast, so I would do a lot of artwork for them. So, and then like Biggie or Nas when they would come in. So it was a lot of fun to be able to make art as a young kid right out of high school and actually get paid well to make art. So that's another part of my work and research even today. From there, the last area of my growth as an artist is history. And I love all history, but primarily the history of the Middle Passage. In schools and all the way to even college, from undergrad to finally at University of Iowa, many times we never really spoke about the Middle Passage as like who were those enslaved Africans in those ships. We just said, oh, they were just slaves, and then they went to the New World. We never even spoke about what kind of food did they eat, what nationalities were they. You know, like they weren't just African. They had their own empires and places of living, and the way did they eat? Were there kings? Were there queens? What kind of things did they like to do for fun? We never saw them as human beings. So I've always brought that back into my mind about how do we see and view other people. From there, the work that I create is always going back to the idea of home. In my younger days, I would do a lot of traveling, and I went to Italy as well as France. And on this trip, I had the opportunity to go to Notre Dame. And something that was striking to me, I noticed the rose windows and the glass windows. And if you can see on the right side of the screen that I'm showing, that it has the outline of the Middle Passage. So slave ships. So I thought that was really powerful because many of the slave captains used the idea of Christianity as the right reasons for them to enslave other people. And I thought it was interesting that they even in their own artwork related to the things that they were doing in their daily lives. So it kind of mimicked. So from there, I began to push the idea of welcoming. And a lot of people were like, oh, okay, why a pineapple? Growing up in the South, you see a lot of symbolism of the pineapple. And when I was younger, my mom and I had some friends at church that were really well off, had a lot of money, and they lived in a mansion. And we would go over their house for, supper after church. And they had, when you open their door, they had a huge pineapple that looked gold. I mean, it was not gold, but it looked gold. And my mom, and I was like, oh, Mom, what's this? And she said, oh, it's a pineapple, and it's a symbol for welcome and hospitality. I was like, a pineapple? It's like, yeah. And so that means you're going to be eating really good food tonight because, they got money. So they're going to welcome us nicely. So we're going to have some good fried chicken tonight. So I was like, ooh, this is going to be great. So that always put in my back of my mind that this pineapple was a symbol for welcoming. So when I moved for grad school from Georgia to Iowa, it came back to me later in life of the idea of how are you welcoming and hospitable to other people. Coming to Iowa, I didn't really feel welcomed. So, and never saw a lot of people that looked like myself. So I felt like this was like a new world. I was like an astronaut coming to a new environment. So the pineapple became like a symbol that I was thinking a lot about. So first of all, let's just break down what a pineapple is. A lot of times when I say I work with the pineapple, the first thing I hear is, oh, so you're from Hawaii, aren't you? I'm like, no, I am not from Hawaii, and Hawaii is not their culture. to see a pineapple and use the pineapple as a symbol for hospitality and welcoming. So if you ever hear that you've been tricked, you've been duped, you've been led astray by the Dole Pineapple Company, first of all, pineapples never even came to Hawaii until 1880. So right there, that shows you they never even seen what a pineapple looked like. And as you can see, a pineapple doesn't grow in trees, so it's not like a coconut. It's actually a plant. And if you also think about it, it also looks very alien-like. And so I always took that as a way like, wow, that even goes with my interest in science fiction. So how we find out that we think that the pineapple was from Hawaii is because Dole Pineapple Company back in 1908 started cultivating the pineapple there as a way to use as a promotional branding to say, wow, we got an amazing exotic fruit that it comes from a new state called Hawaii. So it was like kind of fantasizing the idea of something new and exotic to the United States and to the world. So from there, I wanted to do more research about where we get the idea of the pineapple as a welcoming and a hospitable symbol, since first of all, we're already incorrect in our assumptions that it's from Hawaii. So where does it come from? Originally, the pineapple came from South America, primarily in Chile, Brazil, as well as Peru. And from there, the indigenous Indians from those areas of South America would go back and forth and do trade with those indigenous people in the Caribbean, like in Barbados, and they were cultivated there. So it was going back and forth. It was like a cross-pollination, and they actually used the pineapple for rituals as well as celebrations, to the point that they even made their own pineapple beer. So it was already a cultural thing to have a pineapple and actually use the pineapple for their ceremonies. So from there, we're going to go push that forward to the Enlightenment period, to how we started to get this idea of welcoming and hospitality for the name of pineapples. Colonialism, they saw the pineapple as a way to take and use to show their power. So what they would do, they would have enslaved Africans in South America as well as the Caribbean, and then from there to South Carolina and Georgia, where I'm from, and they would have enslaved Africans cultivate the pineapple. And the pineapple was so expensive to the point that one pineapple was worth $4,000. So colonialists would never eat the pineapple. It was not something for them to say that was edible. They saw it as a decorative piece. They didn't see it as something that was for food, for substance. They saw it as a different way. They saw it as a way of power and show how beautiful it is. So what they would do, they would have these great parties, and they would use the pineapple as a decorative ornament for their parties to welcome guests and show their abundance, that look at all the enslaved Africans, look at all the things that we have done to create this wonderful, welcoming place. So this image here is from Hendrik Datcher's, which is what you notice a lot in these paintings of that time. King Charles II, he actually was nicknamed King Pine. And so he actually had his own symbolism was the pineapple. Wherever you go, everyone knew him as the Pineapple King because of how much money a pineapple was. To the point that after his parties, after the decoration, they would, in 7 days, his servants would give it to the poor and tell them to eat my shit, saying that he has so much power that he can give something that's $4,000 to the lower class. So that's how we get the idea of hospitality for the word, for the pineapple. So how did we get this idea of welcoming? So this is very shocking. Continuing to do my research, I realized, learning from that, they found that they would put a pineapple at the docks before a new shipment of enslaved Africans would come. and they would put that pineapple there because they knew a pineapple would start to go bad in 7 days. So from there, they would know that this was a new shipment, just like, oh, this is a fresh new shipment of enslaved Africans here. So that was one of the first things the people from Africa was a pineapple. So we all know that that's not very welcoming, but however, they saw it as a welcoming thing because the colonialists saw it as a way of getting their money in abundance to their colonial powers. So from there, I continued to do the research. I also have an art history minor background. So I was working, and I did all this research while I was at the University of Iowa my 3 years. And this piece is something that is common of the time of the day in art. They would have a picture of an enslaved African woman. This one happens to be a Haitian woman, and they would see her breast hanging out with a fruit basket or a bunch of fruit, and a pineapple was always present, trying to represent the idea of how we can control another race or people and show how abundant we are because of it. And so those are some things that it was always going back to my mind. So from there, I wanted to like go from how I was feeling when I was in high school and thinking about the different things of, well, what kind of people were they? Well, they had lives. What kind of rituals did they do? What kind of ceremonies they had? So powerfully enough that the University of Iowa has a major collection of African art, one of the biggest in the nation. So it was a great way for research. So I'm very thankful that I was able to go back and forth to the Stanley Museum with the help of Kimberly and Joy Tsai and things of that nature. And so I started to look at different rituals and initiation, headdresses, and things of that nature. But instead of seeing it in a way that was, I guess, literal, I wanted to give it the idea of like, what do I get from it? What makes it really look welcoming? Seeing the raffia, seeing the headdresses, seeing the breastplates for each ritual. Those were the things that was making me feel like home. These were the things that you will wear. Just like when you go to a party, you want to dress up to the party. You want to make sure you're looking flashy, you're looking good. So, because you're going to be feeling good when you're enjoying good food and good company. So I took that to relate to how we live, in the present time. This is just traditional. And so from there, they use those same raffia for even their masks as well as their domiciles. So that also gave me an idea of like, that's a welcoming kind of thing. That is a texture that looks welcoming. So from there, I started to put my own personal ideas of what feels welcome to me. Growing up, my mom, she has a lot of mental issues, and she has multiple personalities. And a part of her dealing with her own struggles, she pulls her hair out. And for most people, they would think that that's something of a negative, but I never saw it in that way. I saw it in a way that when I would see that hair, when I would come home from school, I knew my mom was safe and I knew she was home. So for me, I always saw hair as of a positive thing, something that was beautiful, something that I knew that was welcoming. Also, when you think about hair, is also the one thing that many forensics use to find who a person is. So that also related to the idea of welcoming. You always want to be found and being loved. Lastly, formally, I enjoyed the idea because it also reminded me of raffia, as well as the waves in the hair also reminded me of waves in the music I listen to when I'm making my work, as well as the waves of the Atlantic Ocean when many of the enslaved Africans jumped overboard or were pushed overboard, so the captains will have enough money, food for the rest of the trip. So lastly, I'm really interested in repetition and the power of repetition and memory. So I started to do a lot of research on Aboriginal art and how they would use one stick and pigment, and they would make this dot continuous to the point that they would go into time and places and transcend where they are. And I kind of feel like that's what I do with myself when I'm creating my work. because I, instead of using a stick and a pigment, I actually use a needle tool that's reminiscent to my love of printmaking. My favorite medium in printmaking is etching. So for all those out there who are printmakers here, I see my artwork more as a three-dimensional print to show repetition and a memory of where I go and where I come from. So from there, this is a piece of research, and I wanted to show you where I get my forms and things of that nature into the work. This is a Dalek, and it's a science fiction fictional character from the TV series Doctor Who, and they were the protagonists for Doctor Who in this BBC television show, and they were called Daleks. And they were civilization and world that would go through all different galaxies and try to destroy and exterminate other cultures and worlds because of their high intelligence and their thinking that they had the power over other people. So I felt like that kind of related to all the things I was thinking about when you are living and not feeling about yourself as welcome, or possibly are welcome but don't feel you are. So from there, that's the reason why I created this piece called Dalek. It was actually the first one of the first pieces that I ever made in the series, and it kind of relates back to, you see the bulbous shapes, just like the bulbous shapes of the Daleks in the fictional character, but it also relates to the breast form that you would see in the art history oil paintings of that time as well. So I'm putting those two things together. So from there, this piece is called Welcoming. So this is the opposite. This is something positive. So this is more of like the initiation of welcoming into a new space and becoming initiated into a better world. So sometimes the work speaks in the positive and sometimes it speaks in the negative. Here is an image of a Maasai warrior headdress. And this is speaking about what the work was going to the end of my 3 years at the University of Iowa, and the idea of welcome to Afro City, which is actually in the future, Afro City would be actually where Iowa City is today, but in the year 3021. So I saw this more formally in the idea of it looking more like a womb, with a head coming out of a womb. So I saw that into this piece called Womb. And I wanted to create this because I felt like in order to be initiated, you have to become a new human being. You have to become into a new world. You have to change all your inhibitions and thoughts about how the past was or how the present is. And you have to become a new person, which is the future of living in a life that you're not thinking about, oh, this artist is Black, so this must mean this, or because this person is heavyset, this means that. What I'm trying to say, that we can be all initiated into something more powerful than how we perceive each other or assume who each other are. So from there, I created this piece called Prepare, which was also going to be in the thesis show. And just like the idea of a preparation for a party or an initiation to a ritual during traditional African, West African ceremonies, you have to prepare your party. So you have to have the right food, who's going to be invited, what kind of venue you're going to have, what kind of music you're going to play. So all those things I was thinking about when created this piece. The top also relates to the form of a raffia home, as well as the body shape is referencing Star Wars drones. And the movie Empire Strikes Back, which was one of my favorite movies in the Star Wars genre, Darth Vader had drones going all over the galaxy looking for Luke Skywalker. So I'm relating, and the drones had similar look to the body shape of this piece called Prepare. So they were preparing a place for a human being. So I saw that as an idea of like drones going all over the world looking for people to start a new world. So the preparation is not really a party, but a way to create a new world, a new city, a new organization that challenges all the things of the past. So this is the last piece. If you notice the bottom, this piece is called Sanctuary, and it kind of relates back to one of the images that I showed previous with the breastplates of initiations to man to boy, boy to manhood, in one of the images that you saw. So I kind of saw this as a way to speak to where do we find sanctuary when we don't think we are welcome to have it. So this is like a totem to represent sanctuary and getting to know who you are and being not afraid to show that to others. So with that said, I thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's comments and questions and continue the discussion going further.
All right, thank you, Donté. That was really illuminating and fascinating to learn more about the pineapple, its history, and its process. If anybody has questions, you can put those in the Q&A box. Or if you have comments, feel free to put that in chat as well. I have one question for you to kind of get us started. It seems like your work is both heavily grounded in the body, but also moves to transcend that bodily form. Could you talk about maybe a little bit of the making process and how maybe some of those ideas come into that creative process for you?
When you go back formally and you look at a pineapple, it has like two sections. One, the bottom kind of looks like a body, and then the top bouquet look of the different plant flowery work kind of looks like a crown. So I always saw it as like two different things. Like the top, it was like a representation of your crown. So saying that who your soul is. The body is how you react to life, you know, physically, not spiritually. So that's how I kind of first saw it formally, just looking at a pineapple. Then how do I create the work is I always start with that bottom half of a pineapple. And once again, I look at it formally and I see it as, looks like R2-D2 back in Star Wars. R2-D2 kind of had the same shape. It looked like a trash can. So all the pieces that you saw that I create always start in that trash can look, R2-D2. And then from there, I squeeze and push and pull away just using my hands. Once I have the form, this is the fast part of the work, just making the form. I can make those forms in like a large one, maybe 21 inches tall in like 5 hours, very fast. But then the slow part, the maniacal repetition and the memory part comes from the what I call the etching or the mark making. That could take like 20 to 30 hours. The one piece that I referred to, Dalek, that was a 16-hour me marking. And I didn't get up from it. I did it 16 hours straight. Never got up, never took a break, never ate. All I had was my headphones, listening to the beats and marking. And then as soon as I was done, I had to go to the bathroom. You know what I mean? Because like when you're doing this, I get into a trance. You don't think that time ends when I'm making these. So I even have a ritual in my own work and I feel like maybe that you can feel that energy, that wave energy into the work because I'm so invested in that piece.
Thanks. We've got a couple of questions that have come in here today. The first one I think would be helpful is if you could say a little bit more about the clay and why you choose to work in clay rather than other materials.
Yes. Well, I do work in multiple materials. In the picture, you can see that I work in printmaking as well. So what up to all the printmakers in the house. But also, I don't see ceramics as a way like I am a ceramic artist or I'm a printmaking artist. I just see myself as an artist. And I made prints in the same genre that has Afrofuturist connotations in the work. However, I felt like to make the work that really speaks, it needed not be in 2 dimensions. The print needed to be a 3-dimensional print. And I see these sculptures as 3-dimensional prints, because I'm still, even though I'm creating using clay, I'm using the same material to me as an etching tool when I'm making the texture. So I'm thinking about them differently than maybe a person who's coming only strictly from ceramics. I see this as an opportunity for concept. I don't see me making the ceramic work because I'm a ceramic artist. I chose ceramics because this gave me the correct answer for how does it feel? How does it touch? How does it make you feel to be welcomed? And I thought something in clay could convey that way more. Now, of course, I'm using a clay body that is actually a brown clay body that has manganese in it, which is very dangerous. So you got to wear gloves, and it has a lot of black mason stain. So when it gets fired to a certain heat, it will turn black on its own. So I'm not adding any glaze, I'm not adding any washes, or I'm not doing anything to create this color, which I also wanted. I wanted the artwork itself, the textures itself, the material itself to be the content.
Yeah, the color that comes through when it's fired is so rich. I hadn't realized that was just the clay itself. That's really cool.
But because also to add on to that, just because I did a lot of, in the 3 years I was there, I did a lot of different research on like what would be a great texture for this. So sometimes when I was beginning to do this, they were glazed, and sometimes the texture is new. You know, it was just from me continually pushing the idea of what really feels welcoming. And I realized that the best way of doing that is using the material itself, not me adding to it.
Yeah, it comes out with a richness to it that I think is very inviting, and it encourages you to look more closely at it and stay with it for a while. We've got a question about how you install these objects. So thinking about them as 3-dimensional prints, when you put them in an exhibition, what are you thinking about as you put them together, and what other effects might you add into that?
Great question. First of all, let's just talk about the talk. This was coming from, this was awesome because Kimberly had invited myself to do this back on April 10th, which would have been my reception for Welcome to Afro City. And if we did have that reception, the works would have been on, one of those pieces would have actually been on a Louis XIV looking table with a bunch of fried chicken, collard greens, biscuits, no LaCroix. I don't play that LaCroix stuff. So you're gonna have some nice drinks, you know, but a big abstract pineapple shape in the middle, just like the research I was showing you. So the work would have also felt like a welcoming party. I would have had a DJ there, you know. So that's how we had the idea for the show, that it was going to be a party. You were going to be initiated into a new world, Afro City.
Yeah, that sounds like it would have been a really good party.
With some good food.
Yeah. Let's see. So we have some questions. Another question here about the works in the African collection at the Stanley that informed your work. You talked about them kind of broadly and showed some work, photographs of people wearing the breastplates and things. Could you talk about maybe some of the objects that you saw that may have influenced your work?
A lot of the vessel work, because a lot of the vessel works in the Stanley Museum, just in general, they were created by women. So I'm also like giving respect to all of the women who actually make these vessels in clay there, you know, using the same technique that I would use as coil method. So I'm bringing back to that in the way that they're the ones that actually make the work. So I'm kind of like giving back the respect of the women who actually make the work, because I feel like world that we live in right now, that women are not seen as how they should be seen, as queens like they should be. So I'm coming more from that route. So using the idea of many of the works from Burkina Faso, they have that inlay, that roundness to it, to the pieces, because their pieces are created in the round. So I'm always making sure that the pieces have that formal quality, but yet I'm coming in from a male perspective, of course.
Yeah, thanks. The ceramics, the African ceramics that we have are really the minority in our collection. A lot of the African works are created by men, and ceramics is really one avenue that's carved out for women. And so that's really cool that you're kind of thinking about those gender dynamics within that creation as well. There's another question about the kind of symbolism that you use in your work and the hair. So one person asked if you could talk a little bit about the symbolism of your mother's hair and how that might appear in the works.
Oh yeah, because I love my mom, and once again, it goes back to the idea of giving props to the creator. You know, women are the creators, really, to this world, and I feel like they should be the reasons why we should be making work in the first place. So for the reasons why I used the hair, going back to what I was saying about the work, is because I felt like that was a form of welcoming to me, because I would know that she was safe. And also, hair anyway is also a covering, so it protects you in the same way as that, and it also gives you your roots. So no matter where you are, no matter even if you don't know where your roots are, your roots in your hair are showing from all of those generations. So the work is not just speaking about this in Black terms. It's speaking about we all can relate to not feeling welcomed or not being hospitable in a place, and how that makes you feel. You want to crawl up into the fetal position. You want to be in your cute dog's lap. You know, you want your dog be in your lap because you want that welcoming and loving feeling. So in the work is coming from that. It's not per se Black or non-Black. It's all these things all in one.
Yeah, I think those ideas of feeling welcome, the ways that we comfort, those kind of self care rituals that we can have are really powerful and come through in the way that you're shaping the clay and the way that you're positioning your objects and thinking about them in your work. There are a couple of
also,
questions.
especially, I didn't want to cut you off, but since we're also doing a discussion with the work too, it also is like really powerful right now. Look at the time we're living in. We can't really hug and hold and even like dap one another anymore. So I was thinking about that in the work as well, especially like how do we initiate a welcoming to someone? I was always thinking that even before there even was a COVID. So like these works are even more profound now because we can't touch the people that we love.
Yeah, absolutely. We're really having to rethink everything right now. There are some questions about Afro City. So what are the key or core elements that will be realized in Afro City? And then are you planning on creating some more pieces related to Afro City?
Yeah, that's where my work is going right now. Using the idea of initiation and being initiated to something greater than ourselves. I feel like, especially we're living in a world that everything is virtual, and that we have to do everything by our phones. You know, like what happened to like be able to use your phone to actually call someone, not text them, you know, or FaceTime them. Just actually like just talk one-on-one on the phone. So I kind of like feel like I'm creating a world that speaks to like changing who you are, being open to being allowed to say, yes, I'm wrong. I need to do better. And I don't want to be told like, oh, so you're going to teach me how to do better? No, you're going to do that on your own. You're going to do your own work. I feel like so many times everyone expects a handout in that kind of way. If you know you're doing wrong, the way you can truly be a friend is actually be a friend. We all know what a friend looks like. And we also know what a friend doesn't look like. So if you see someone being hurt, what do? You help them. You don't sit around being quiet. When someone's saying something that's misogynist or sexist or homophobic in a classroom or in a meeting, what are you going to do? You're just going to sit there and act like you didn't hear it? So my work is about being initiated into something better. You know, that's the reason why that one piece, Boom, was very important to the piece, to the whole show, because it's like saying that, okay, fine, I'm going to now push myself out from my past, and I'm going to make a better present for the future. I'm no longer going to live in this same bubble that I can pretend that everything's good when it's not.
Yeah, it's a real, really forcing you to come to terms with what you're seeing and not hide from it.
Yeah.
And in a lot of ways, just kind of going back to my son's in preschool, just like, how do you be nice to people?
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? Taking those steps.
And it's not about some allied junk. It's about, you know, that I think that's bogus too. Being a friend is what you should be doing. If you're a real friend, no one's going to question your sincerity. People know when something's sincere and non-sincere.
Yeah, absolutely. We have one comment here about the pineapple is a symbol of welcoming when it has this sort of prickly exterior, and it's hard to get into. It's not cuddly, but kind of at a time that we're living where we have to be distant, like that is like an interesting phenomenon there.
Yeah, it's super hard to get inside a pineapple. You know, you wouldn't even know that it was something good to eat. You know, so I think that's another interesting, you know, duality to the work, because I'm actually flipped it. The outside of my sculptures look inviting, you know, and it comes from that idea of, like, when we're on the question about the hair. Most people, when I say that hair is inviting to me, well, that's nasty. I don't want to have come to my house and seeing hair on my kitchen table, you know. But when people look at this piece, they're inviting. They still look inviting. So I'm trying to switch your mind state of what you think is beautiful.
Yeah, I think seeing your works in a museum are one of those hard works to encounter, just because you want to touch them so much. They really do invite an interaction, a tactile experience, as well as taking it in visually, because they are very welcoming in their shapes.
And that's the answer to how I was trying to explain why I can't make these two-dimensionally. That's the reason why I decided to make the work in clay, you know.
And then our last question kind of is a nice way to wrap up, and a nice way to kind of parallel some of our, the museum's position and sort of where you're at, where both the museum and you are starting to look into this new future that's sort of unknown. It's coming together. We have the structure kind of built. You've got your MFA that you've recently completed. Our building's going up, and Lauren noted that it's going to have manganese clay bricks on it as well. So we have a nice little connection.
No.
And where do you see your work headed? What do you have coming up after this fall?
Oh yeah, well, currently I'm showing work at Mindy Solomon Gallery, where I show my work at right now, and as well as showing in a show at Baltimore Clay Works, and citing that Josh Van Stippen is one of the professors here at Iowa. He's showing there with me, so what's up, Josh? You know, and Ceramics family. So it's exciting to be showing with another person from Iowa. And in October, I'm showing work in London, England. And then in January, in November, I'm doing a residency at Hambridge Art Center in North Georgia, back home. And then in January, I was invited to do a residency in North Carolina. So I'll be there for a month and a half.
Well, that's fantastic. Congratulations on those upcoming shows and the residency. We've got one last question that came in from Anita as you were talking about the relationship between fashion and adornment throughout history, thinking about hair and headdress, but also the Elizabethan ruffle and creating extremes within the body and kind of playing with absurdity. So where do you define the line between cartoon and heartbreak, she asks.
Say the last part.
Where do you define the line between cartoon and heartbreak?
Oh, great, that's deep. Yeah, thanks, Anita. Great question, and I enjoyed these conversations that we had in your workshop. Because first of all, I like that you brought up the ruffle, because I'm thinking about the ruffle in the colonial garb, as well as the opposite of the traditional headdresses in West Africa, or in Benin and things of that nature. So coming from both of those, I don't really think about the idea of like how it's going to be cartoonish or anything. I'm just mostly just thinking about how do those textures feel, and what context do we get from them, So if you see a breastplate, what are we thinking about? We're thinking about something that protects us, or we're thinking about something that's ruffly. We're thinking something that's like frou-frou, something that's like for the bourgeois, the rich. So I'm coming from that way. I don't even think about it in those terms.
And then we've got one more about what contemporary artists influence you, or maybe speak to some of the same ideas that you're thinking of. And you're going in so many different directions, and you bring it together so seamlessly in your work. But what are some artists that you're kind of in conversation with?
Well, first of all, I have to always give props to Elizabeth Catlett. As you know, Kimberly, I went there a lot to see her work. And to me, she's my favorite artist of all time. That's the reason why I make work, because like I love the way she drew, and the content was coming from that. I never felt like she thought herself as a activist. Like she just is a human being. You know what I mean? That's how I see myself. When a lot of times people ask, "Oh, are you an activist artist?" I'm like, I'm an artist, and because I am a human being, of course, I'm going to be active into loving all people. What I'm saying, wanting those who are not being treated right to give them a voice. So I'm more into thinking about, I guess, artists like Simone Lee, which is in the collection. I feel like that's an artist that I would love to have a convo with, because I feel like we would have a lot of great conversations coming from a female perspective versus a male perspective, and how I think that would be like a really powerful thing to go back and forth with her. So I guess that right now. Shakia Booker is another artist that I really like, using the black, because I use a lot of tar paper. That's another artist that I really would like to speak with. Theaster Gates is another artist that I really enjoy. And then like the conversations that I feel like we could have just by the work itself, and how we see art, I think that would be pretty powerful. Those are three that come to mind.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Donté. This has been a fabulous conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed hearing more about your work and hearing you talk about it. It was really fascinating, and I felt like I learned a lot and opened my eyes up to some more questions to consider when looking at some of these things. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
No,
and
thank you.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time out. I know it's a little different than we had planned, but we've made it work.